Hello and welcome. Tonight, Federal Executive Council considers new developmental projects, reviews scorecard of previous year. Federal government announces resumption of domestic flights in Lagos and Abuja from next week, Wednesday, July the 8th. National Assembly announces suspension of planned recruitment of 774,000 Nigerians following face-off with Ministry of Labour and Employment. Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency recommends upward review of petrol pump price from 121 naira to between 140 to 143 naira per litre. And China tests new security law, arrests 300 people in Hong Kong, including a man with a pro-independence flag. Plus, business and news from Abuja, the FCT, and later from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, global rating agency Moody's says Nigerian banks are facing foreign currency liquidity pressure due to current low oil prices and lower remittances in the face of the coronavirus pandemic.
On sports news tonight, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang becomes the fastest Arsenal player to reach 50 Premier League goals after scoring in the Gunners' 4-0 win over Norwich.
And from Abuja, interstate travels begin in the nation's capital, Abuja, with travelers and transporters paying little or no regard to COVID-19 guidelines.
The Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, has denied shielding from trial the 10 soldiers who allegedly killed 3 policemen in Taraba State last year while rescuing suspected kidnap kingpin Wadume from the police team. Mr. Malami gave an update on the case today at the virtual Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari with several ministers in attendance. State House correspondent Kayla Megwa reports that a total of 6 memos and 2 scorecards for the past year were presented to the Council.
The virtual Federal Executive Council meeting kicked off at 10 a.m. with President Muhammadu Buhari presiding. Some ministers addressed a news conference on the 6 memos and 2 scorecards presented to the Council.
The first one is award for the construction of a road linking Yaba to Gurdi Road in Abuja Area Council. Contract amount of 4,648,255,381 naira 42 kobo, with a completion period of 20 months. The second contract is for the third phase of the construction of roads within the city of Abuja in the sum of 2,128,176,102 naira 50 kobo, with a completion period of 6 months.
The cost of 2 road projects were increased by the Ministry of Works and Housing, while the Ministry of Water Resources got approval for the Lankang irrigation project in Jos, Plateau State.
First project is the Koto Cafe to Lokoja section of the Abuja-Abaji-Lokoja highway. So that cost was revised upwards by 3.076 billion. The second road is the Cham-Numan section of the Gombe to Yola highway. Again, the revision of the cost is by 7.607 billion.
The Minister of Information and the Minister of Justice gave their scorecard for the past year and plans for the years ahead. Mr. Malami shed light on the Wadume case. He has been accused of shielding 10 soldiers who allegedly killed 3 police officers while helping Wadume escape on the 6th of August 2019.
Those that are handy for the purpose of prosecution cannot just be held in custody for unduly longer period of time on account of the absence of the military. So that is how the idea of severing the charge to allow those that are handy to stand their trial arises. But that does not by any means mean to say that the military are shielded The military cannot be prosecuted, but then if they have to be prosecuted, they have to be prosecuted within the context of the law.
It was another week of scorecards and approvals, which is expected to translate to a better life for all Nigerians. From the presidential villa in Abuja, Kayla Magwa, Channels Television News.
To the aviation sector, the federal government has announced resumption of domestic flight operations in Abuja and Lagos airports from next week, Wednesday, July the 8th, 2020. According to the Minister of Aviation, Mr. Hadi Sirika, Kanu, Port Harcourt, Owerri and Maiduguri airports will begin flight operations on Saturday, July the 11th. The minister, who announced the flight resumptions in a tweet, also confirms that other airports will resume flights on July 15th, while the date for the international flights to be announced in due course. The resumption of flights comes just days after the federal government lifted the ban on interstate travel within the curfew hours. Meanwhile, President Muhammadu Buhari has forwarded to the Senate the names of 41 non-career ambassadors designate for confirmation. The upper chamber also received a request for the confirmation of Suleiman Sani as career ambassador designate for the Federal Capital Territory. The president's requests are contained in a letter read on the floor by Senate President Ahmed Lawan during Wednesday's plenary session.
Dear distinguished Senate President, appointment of non-career ambassadors designate. In accordance with Section 171, subsections 1, 2c, and subsection 4 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, I have the honor to forward for confirmation by the Senate the underlisted 41 names of nominees as non-career ambassadors designate. Copies of their curriculum vitae are here attached herewith. While using this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to the distinguished Senate for the confirmation of career ambassadors earlier forwarded, it is my hope that this request will also receive your usual expeditious consideration. Please accept, distinguished Senate President, the assurances of my highest consideration and personal regards. Yours sincerely, Muhammadu Buhari.
You can find the full list of the ambassadorial nominees on our website, channelstv.com. And following Tuesday's face-off between the National Assembly and the Minister of State for Labor, the National Assembly says the implementation of the 774,000 Public Works program is put on hold. According to lawmakers, that will be until modalities for executing the program are explained to the federal legislature. In a joint statement, the Senate and the House of Representatives are mandating their committees on labor to immediately invite the Minister of Labor to brief them on the modalities for implementing the program. Senate spokesman Ajibola Bashiru told journalists that the legislature was involved in the conceptualization.
If the president sees that our power is being encroached, they can approach the court of law. What we are saying is this project, the way you are looking at it, is as if it's an exclusively presidential project. From the paragraph 2 of our statement, you will see that the conception of the program, its approval, and its funding is with the consent of the National Assembly, because we think it's going to be beneficial for the purpose of addressing challenges of COVID-19. So your perspective of saying encroaching on the power of the president, there is no exclusivity in terms of any program that is to be implemented, unless you are saying National Assembly is not part of government. Assuming the National Assembly is opposed to the program, we could have not approved it. We could not have appropriated, but we are in full support of the program. But we want to be sure that names don't just fly. As you journalists also raised issue about the humanitarian social register. But when the National Assembly intervene, there's more transparency to it. Our people will also ask questions. These 1,000 people, how were they generated? Who set up the selection committee? What are the modalities for recruitment? What are the minimum requirements for recruitment? It cannot be left to the whims of a person or to a branch of the government. It has to be a totality of involvement of executive and legislative arm.
Still at the National Assembly, members of the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts are questioning the coverage of the federal government's school feeding program. Now, the lawmakers, at a meeting with the Statistician General and the Special Assistant to the President on School Feeding Program, also sought to know how these statistics of the schools were generated. The Speaker of the House of Representatives also queried the possibility of private schools being listed on the program. Our correspondent Terry Ikumi reports.
Speaker of the House of Representatives makes an appearance at the public hearing of the House Committee on Public Accounts, which is meeting with the Statistician General of the Federation and the Special Assistant to President Buhari on the homegrown school feeding program. Following the presentation of the Statistician General, the Speaker is worried that private schools may have been included in the school feeding program, which is supposed to be strictly for public schools.
I'm not particularly aware of the details of the program, no. No, these are not details. This is the basic, I'm not aware public or private I'm not aware of that information, whether it relates to public or private schools.
You're telling the world that you don't know whether the school feeding program is applicable to public schools or to private schools. You are not aware.
I'm not aware of whether it applies to private or public schools.
The Special Assistant to the President on the school feeding program says the process of selecting the schools includes the list submitted by the state governments.
We specifically had said public primary schools at the time of the engagement, but the list provided was actually the list given by the states for them to validate.
So as it is now, I can have an interest in this. I can be part of the state government and have an interest, or my relative has an interest in a private school, and that can slip through the cracks, and they can go and validate and come back to you and say it's validated, even though it's a wholly 100% private school.
It's expected that all the schools provided by the states are public primary schools, which is what is communicated to the states.
It's expected.
Which is also what is in the Memorandum of Understanding.
But you don't know if the states have complied.
According to Mr. Adebayo, state governments are held responsible for the data they provide and are liable to refund the federal government if the data is false. The lawmakers are, however, worried that schools in their constituencies have not benefited from the program, despite claims by the federal government, and they want the breakdown of every school and how monitoring is done. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
If the price hike by cable TV service provider MultiChoice is not reversed within 1 month, the National Broadcasting Commission will be sanctioned. That's according to the House of Representatives Committee on the Implementation of Pay-as-you-go tariff plan by cable TV service providers. The chairman of the committee also condemns the monopoly of the market space and charges the Ministry of Information and the NBC to ensure that it's opened up for better competition.
We agreed as a committee yesterday that if they fail to give that directive for them to reverse within 1 month, that we are going to sanction NBC, which is the regulatory body as far as cable television services is concerned in Nigeria. And then we also asked the minister and the NBC DG to ensure that the sector is open up for larger participation. We are not satisfied with the, with the way the sector of that industry is underutilized. That subsector has a lot of potentials in terms of employment, in terms of creativity. I think after agriculture, it should be broadcasting. So,
to the oil and gas sector, the Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency has recommended an increase in the retail pump price of petroleum, that is premium motor spirit known as petrol, for July from the previous 121 naira 50 kobo to between 140 naira 80 kobo and 143 naira 80 kobo. A statement signed by the PPPRA's Executive Secretary Abdul Qadir Seidu adds that the upward review is based on the existing price regime. The agency, which has been giving PMS pricing recommendations for marketers, states that the new ex-depot price includes the statutory charges of bridging fund, marine transport average, national transport allowance, and the administrative charge. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms. using a mobile device browser or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has arraigned Malibu Oil and Gas Limited, 6 other companies, and an oil tycoon, Aliyu Abubakar, before the Federal High Court on a 48-count fraud charge. They are being tried over their alleged involvement in the fraudulent transfer of controversial OPL 245, considered as one of the richest oil blocks in Africa. The EFCC alleged that they were involved in money laundering to the tune of about $1 billion and 673 million naira. According to the anti-graft agency, Malibu Oil and Gas Limited and 2 of its directors who are currently at large directly or indirectly converted the sums paid from the federal government of Nigeria's escrow account with JP Morgan Chase Bank in London into Malibu Oil's account with a commercial bank in Nigeria. Meanwhile, the EFCC has also restated its resolve to recover all stolen funds from corrupt persons. The acting chairman of the commission, Mr. Ibrahim Magu, who spoke at a meeting in Abuja, highlighted how billions of naira have been recovered by the commission. He also advised the nation's youth to channel their energy into ventures that will create jobs and income instead of engaging in fraud.
We are at the level of a moving train. Yes. You know, a moving train. We don't have apology to any looter. We just hit them. I'm telling you, we hit them. And I want you to monitor what we are doing. Yes. So that it's not a one-way situation. You have the right to check the excesses that you record here. Yes. Find a way to tell me that something is going wrong. I will take correction. If you don't do that, you are not. I mean, you are already part of the fight against corruption. So you have a duty, responsibility to look at the right thing we are doing, and also the wrong thing we are doing. If we are doing wrong, tell us. Because if you don't tell us, you are also responsible. Yes. Yes. You are now part and parcel of the fight against corruption. Please. So I want to urge you to not only release public information for us to fight corruption, also to monitor our activities, make sure we do the right thing, because you are part of it. If we do wrong, you also carry the blame. So correct us if we are doing wrong, and we will try as much as possible not to do the wrong thing.
To politics in Taraba State, the People's Democratic Party have won in all the 16 local government chairmanship and councillorship positions contested in the just concluded Taraba Council polls. The election, which took place yesterday, June the 30th, had been postponed from February the 10th due to the coronavirus pandemic. 17 political parties indicated interest to contest for the elections, but the APC later withdrew its interest, citing lack of proper preparation to field candidates. This was announced by the chairman, Taraba State Independent Electoral Commission, Dr. Philip Due, while briefing journalists in Jalingo, the state capital. To the coronavirus pandemic, the governor of Delta State, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, and his wife are amongst the recent cases that have joined the list of Nigerians who are positive with coronavirus disease. The governor announced this on his Twitter handle today, explaining that he and his wife are asymptomatic, but remain in isolation and undergoing medical treatment. On June the 26th, Governor Okowa announced that he was going into isolation after his daughter tested positive for the virus. Just yesterday, his counterpart in Ondo State, Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, also announced on social media that he'd contracted COVID-19. Before these latest cases, governors of Bauchi and Kaduna State had also been treated for COVID-19 and discharged. The Abia State counterpart, Governor Keze Ekpazu, is also still undergoing treatment for the virus. Meanwhile, there are more positive cases in government circles, this time in Plateau State, where a commissioner has contracted the coronavirus. This has prompted Governor Simon Lalong to direct all members of the State Executive Council to undergo tests for COVID-19 and thereafter isolate themselves. In a statement, the State Commissioner for Information and Communications, Mr. Dan Manjang, announced that the Commissioner for Commerce and Industry, Mr. Abe Aku, tested positive after a random test. And in Kogi State, concerns over COVID-19 may have been responsible for the attack on the Federal Medical Center in Lokoja, the state capital, today. Protesters invaded the facility, armed with weapons, and scared off the doctors and nurses on duty before destroying items worth millions of naira. An eyewitness says the attack was carried out by angry relatives of a woman in labor who was reportedly denied proper care by medical personnel at the hospital.
They brought a pregnant woman this morning at FMC with some people. Then they were telling the doctor to admit the pregnant woman in the labor room. They now said that before they admit the woman, they should go and do coronavirus test. Then the family insists that their person does not have coronavirus. Then the doctors, they refuse to accept the pregnant woman. For the argument then the woman delivered at the front of hospital on the outside the hospital, on the ground, on the empty ground. Nothing like treatment, nothing like caring for the woman. From there, the family of the woman and other people then started to disturb the hospital.
The state government there say they promised to investigate that incident to bring it to closure. Meanwhile, we are joining our Abuja studios. Ibrahim Adra is on hand. Hello, Ibrahim.
Hello, Olumide. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Abuja. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 on Monday lifted the 3-month-old restriction on interstate travel with new guidelines that will regulate the operations of motor parks and commercial vehicles. Some of these guidelines require drivers to reduce the number of passengers in their vehicles, check temperatures, and provide sanitizers for passengers ahead of boarding. Our next report examines the level of compliance as transport operators officially resume interstate travel in Abuja.
The popular Utako Motor Park in Abuja comes alive again after 3 months of inactivity due to the restrictions on interstate travel by the federal government. This is a point for people to sanitize their hands before entering the motor park, as officials of the Nigeria Union of Road Transport Workers also check vehicles for other safety protocols. Although these provisions are made on the first day of the reopening of business, not everyone here is complying with the safety protocols.
When they come to the park, you ask them to want to sanitize in there. They said they are not affecting with this coronavirus. But it's not the best. We need a maximum cooperation. Whenever they come, they should obey and rules and regulations of the motor park. Because before you enter the vehicle, we have to check maintain you, going to get and sanitizing you before you come and enter the vehicle.
We put 2 on the seat. So the whole bus is taking 9 passengers instead of 14 passengers. We have to comply with the directive of the federal government. Where we used to carry 6,000 before, we put only 2,000 naira. From here to Lagos, we carry 8,000 naira.
Some drivers also speak about low turnout of passengers, as well as the effects that the reduction in the number of passengers per vehicle has on their income.
They tell us, make you not carry overload, make you carry normal passenger, 5 passenger, so I not carry plenty money.
When the Presidential Task Force lifted the ban on interstate travel on Monday, it also announced the new guidelines for transport officials. These include, but are not limited to, a compulsory provision of hand-washing facilities, a compulsory use of face masks by travelers, and vehicles to load only 50% of their full capacity. While these guidelines can guarantee a measure of safety in the motor parks, the enforcement of these protocols is a challenge that the government and motor park operators must take seriously.
And while more Nigerians have continued to arrive in the country following their evacuation from various parts of the world, the latest are 172 citizens who arrive at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, from Uganda and Kenya at around 10:20 a.m. via Air Peace flight from Nairobi today. While some of the evacuees disembarked in the nation's capital, others proceeded to the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos. All evacuees who tested negative for COVID-19 are to undergo a 14-day self-isolation as mandated by the NCDC, the Federal Ministry of Health, as well as the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. The latest evacuation was put together by Nigeria's mission in Nairobi, Kenya, and Kampala, Uganda. In a bid to ensure quality health care delivery at the grassroots, the Ebonyi State government has concluded plans to commence community identification program. Governor Dave Umahi announced this at the government house at Abakaliki, the state capital, while briefing journalists. The governor explained that the program will be activated across 171 political wards in the state to enable indigents access health facilities at their doorsteps. He noted that the health workers will be provided with the necessary equipment at the ward levels to check on every household on a daily basis.
No kobo has come in from anybody other than the ones we announced in televisions and radio, which is no more than 277 million, which all of us, donation of salaries of public office holders and so on and so forth. And then, so that is it. Knowing this, therefore, is to see how we activate our community identification program by probably using the political wards, 171 wards, buy 171 keke napep, buy 5 machines per each political ward, so that the medical workers and somebody from the Royal Highness in each community, on each ward, will be going with their machine to check every household on daily basis. Every household on daily. This is the only solution to this COVID. So that those who are sick are lifted immediately with the keke to the required testing center or to a center at the local government where the bus will lift the person to the nearest testing center.
A federal high court here in Abuja has turned down the bail applications filed by suspected kidnap kingpin Hamisu Bala, also known as Wadume, and 6 others, standing trial for illegal gun running and kidnapping. Ruling on the defendants' applications, Justice Binta Murtala Nyako ordered them to be immediately moved from the custody of the Police Special Anti-Robberies Court to the correctional facility in Kuje. Justice Murtala Nyako explained that she saw no reason granting them bail while she was already given the case an accelerated hearing. As a resumed trial, 2 more witnesses testified, including a welder, who narrated how a soldier instructed him to break the handcuffs from Wadume's wrists. After listening to the witnesses, the judge adjourned further trial to July the 7th. The BWC Group, owners of Western LowtoNaija Limited, has unveiled a new online gaming platform called LowtoNaija. Whether for pleasure or for cash rewards, LowtoNaija has an array of instant lottery games that can be played with as low as 100 naira for a reward as high as 7.5 million naira. According to the management, the Nigeria spirit is always high when it comes to gaming.
It's the birthing of something new, and it's been promised to change the gaming landscape in Nigeria. In addition to cash rewards of up to 7.5 million naira, while you are at it,
round of applause, please.
It is LowtoNaija, an instant gaming platform that can be accessed on your mobile devices anywhere, anytime, 24/7. With 126 million internet users in Nigeria, it means one of these things.
The millennials who constitute a huge percentage of the internet users are always on the go on their mobile devices. And as they explore the boundless opportunities that technology offers, they want the convenience and the privacy. they want rapid and exciting games.
There are 3 categories of instant gaming: the Lotto race, instant lottery, and raffles.
We have the instant games that are drawn every 2 minutes, and you win instantly. Your payment is made instantly, withdrawal is made instantly. Everything about it is instantly. And we have our Lotto race games where you can come together as a group and play. Winner takes all, or if 2 or 3 people win, then you can share the money. Then the last one is the raffle that I told you. It's just like the traditional lottery where games are drawn intermittently, twice a day.
Naija Music Rave, Zlatan is the brand ambassador, which according to the company is all in the spirit of Naija and what he represents.
We're trying to capture people with captivating games. We're trying to capture them with quick payouts, instant draws. So you play now, you get the results in the next 2 minutes. You know whether you're a winner. You can play with 100 naira and win as high as 7.5 million naira.
Worried about the integrity of payments and authenticity of LowtoNaija, the Nigeria Lottery Regulation Commission has got their eyes on them.
At every count, when we give a license or a permit for something like this, we will make sure that the right things are done. We are the umpire.
To start already, just log on to LowtoNaija.com.ng, pick an instant game of your choice, and you may be on your way to some jackpot prizes.
Congratulations, everybody!
The Skyway Aviation Handling Company PLC, SACO, has announced a dividend of 16.50 naira per share for the year 2019. The chairman of SACO, Mr. Afolabi Taiwo, revealed this at the 10th annual general meeting of SACO Complex, Ikeja, Lagos. Mr. Taiwo says the company will continue to make business profitable and improve return on investment for shareholders.
For one of the leading ground handling companies in Nigeria, Skyway Aviation Handling Company, SACO, this is its 10th annual general meeting, but the first after its listing on the Nigerian Stock Exchange in 2018. Every company doing business must take stock, and that's what's happening here.
The first item on the agenda is to receive the audited financial statements of the company for the year ended December 31, 2019.
A company that strives to maintain the highest standards of integrity in its operation, kicked off with a voting process, which will determine its company's financial statement. And then, the dividend for the year 2019 is announced.
We will be recommending the payment of the dividend of 16.5 kobo per share for the 2019 financial year, which amounts to 223,340,700 naira.
On the financials, SACO recorded a net profit of over 446.5 million naira in 2019, compared with the over 600 million naira loss it recorded a year earlier. The company also grew its revenue by 24.93% despite the COVID-19 pandemic compared with the previous year.
The British Airways signed a contract with us, so moved from the competitor. That's a very big one.
Our targets for this year to me, is going to be double of what we have now. And we are going to let people be surprised with what we are going to be, the result of our profit for this year.
Skyway Aviation Handling Company PLC, with its new public sector management composition and orientation, has kicked off the development of business models geared towards ushering in efficient and speedy service delivery with a promise to continue providing value for its shareholders.
The News at 10 continues in our Lagos studio, where Ann Nwaodo is on the business desk.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim, and welcome to Business News.
Banks in Nigeria are facing foreign currency shortages due to low oil prices, volatile foreign inflow, and lower remittances, and that's according to the latest report by Moody's rating agency. That report, released today, explains that lower dollar inflow at the time that forex borrowing may be more expensive for Nigerian banks will strain foreign currency funding, despite substantial improvements recorded in 2016. Meanwhile, Moody's hints that the smaller funding gap will enable the banks to better withstand unforeseen deposit withdrawals and likely higher borrowing costs. And talking about bank lending in Nigeria, it is expected to slump from 14% to 2.5% this year, as the present economic downturn is expected to weigh heavily on the banking sector. According to latest forecast by Fitch Global Ratings Agency, the downside risk in the sector is elevated due to the COVID-19 pandemic and a weakened oil sector. The global rating firm further stated that the demand for credit was set to weaken amid reduced economic activity and elevated uncertainty among consumers and businesses, while deteriorating asset quality will make banks even more cautious in issuing loans. However, Fitch forecasts loan growth in the sector to improve slightly to 4.3% next year. The African Development Bank says that it will launch its African Economic Outlook 2020 supplement to review the economic disruptions caused by the pandemic. The supplement, which is scheduled to take place on July the 7th, will revise Africa's growth projections and the outlook for this year 2020 and 2021, and it will also highlight the impact of COVID-19 on Africa's socio-economic landscape. According to that statement by the bank today, this will be the first supplement published in the 19-year history of African Economic Outlook. And activities at the local equities bourse have started the month of July on a positive note as the all-share index appreciated by 0.47%, with investors raking about 60 billion naira at the close of trade today. Let's join Temple Ashaju for the details.
Thank you for joining us on the Stock Market Report. Stocks are back up to begin the first trading day of July 2020 with some renewed interest in certain industrial goods giants, despite declines in MTN Nigeria, the second most capitalized company on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Now, Boa Cement and WAPCO are the catalysts for the session after traders revealed their price valuations for portfolio rebalancing. Now, two oil and gas stocks, O&O and Japol, also revved up the performance of their sectors, but the bears maintains their grip on the banking stocks, which fell the most for the session. Investors gained some 60.4 billion naira as the equity capitalization recovered to 12.8 trillion naira. But activity level weakened due to sell pressure. Now, while traders expect the negative sentiments to persist for the greater part of July 2020, the low prices of stocks are indicative of opportunity for re-entry on fundamentally sound stocks. And that's your Stock Market Report. I'm Temple Ashaju.
And that's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu.
Welcome back. More than 300 people have now become the first to be arrested since the new security law came into force in Hong Kong. At least 10 of them were accused of violating the law, including a man with a pro-independence flag. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news and Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Hong Kong police have made their first arrests under a new anti-protest law imposed by China as crowds marked 23 years since the end of British rule. At least 7 people have been accused of violating the law, including a man with a pro-independence flag. Nearly 200 others have been detained at a banned rally. The national law targets secession, subversion and terrorism with punishments of up to life in prison. Activists and foreign countries have said it erodes freedom, but China has dismissed the criticism. It comes as the UK Prime Minister said the country would open a pathway to British citizenship for around 3 million Hong Kong British national passport holders as a result of the new laws.
The enactment and imposition of this national security law constitutes a clear and serious breach of the Sino-British joint declaration. It violates Hong Kong's high degree of autonomy and is in direct conflict with Hong Kong basic law. The law also threatens the freedoms and rights protected by the joint declaration.
In Russia, Moscow residents have headed to polling stations on the final day of voting on constitutional changes that could allow President Vladimir Putin to stay in power until 2036. State exit polls have suggested the changes will be backed by over two-thirds of voters, who have been encouraged to vote with prize draws offering flats and an ad campaign highlighting other amendments designed to appeal to Russians. The vote was held over 7 days to try to limit the spread of the new coronavirus. Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has signed a decree to extend an emergency payment to informal workers, cushioning the blow of the COVID-19 crisis. The monthly payment of 600 reais, previously set to expire this month, has provided a lifeline to struggling Brazilians and a boost to Bolsonaro's popularity among the poorer voters he has traditionally struggled with. But some presidential advisers have warned that emergency spending during the pandemic cannot stretch on indefinitely, pointing to national debt that may soon exceed GDP. A boat that sank on Lake Van in eastern Turkey is believed to have been carrying 55 to 60 migrants. That's according to the Interior Minister, who added that 6 bodies had been recovered so far. Suleiman Soylu said that 11 people have been detained in relation to the incident, which took place on Saturday. Search and rescue operations are still taking place. The lake is located on the path of migrants attempting to reach Western Turkey and Europe from Iran, Afghanistan and other countries. Italian police have seized around 14 tons of amphetamine captagon pills from Syria worth around €1 billion in what they describe as one of the world's largest single hauls of the drug. Investigators said they have found 3 containers full of paper cylinders for industrial use at the southern Italian port of Salerno, with about 84 million pills inside. Syria has become a major amphetamines exporter and consumer as the trauma of its civil war fueled demand and the breakdown in law and order created opportunities for producers. International and regional powers have agreed at talks to intensify a military campaign against Islamist militants in the West African Sahel region, with French President Emmanuel Macron saying victory over the jihadists was within grasp. Militant attacks in the Sahel region have increased over the last 2 years, especially in the tri-border region of Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali, known as Liptako Gourma, where local authorities have been overrun. Mauritania hosted a meeting of the leaders of the 5 Sahel nations, as well as France and Spain, to plot future strategy in the south of the Sahara. Africa's biggest soccer tournament, the Africa Cup of Nations, has been postponed for 1 year and will now take place in 2022. The global health crisis has disrupted all forms of the game across the continent, and so organisers decided there was now not enough time to complete the qualification process in time for the final tournament. AFCON was due to take place in Cameroon in early January next year. And finally, the acclaimed composer Max Richter has announced the release of a new album called Voices, which features multiple narrators reading parts of the 70-year-old Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
All human beings are born free and equal.
The Voices read parts of the text in their native language, which asserts that every person has the right to life, liberty and security without distinction, such as by race, colour, social origin, religion or politics. The album will be released on July the 31st, while the track All Human Beings, taken from the album, has just been released as a single. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
We start off in the English Premier League, where Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has become the fastest Arsenal player to reach 50 goals in 79 games as the Gunners thrashed bottom club Norwich by 4-0. The Arsenal skipper also provided an assist for Granit Xhaka on 37th minute before completing his brace in the 67th minute. Elsewhere, Newcastle thumped relegation-threatened Bournemouth 4-1, while Everton edged Leicester by 2-1. The last game of the day between West Ham and Chelsea ended 3-2 in favour of the Hammers. Jurgen Klopp says Liverpool will attack the Premier League title next season rather than defend it, and expects Manchester City, Chelsea and Manchester United to come back stronger. The Merseyside Giants were crowned champions on Thursday night after City lost at Stamford Bridge, ending a 30-year wait for the league title. Super Eagles invitee Cyril Dessers has completed his dream move to Belgian side KRC Genk on a 4-year deal. Dessers joins from Heracles Almelo, where he emerged top scorer in the Dutch Eredivisie with 15 goals before the season was cancelled because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The 25-year-old has previously played for Leuven, Sporting Lokeren, NAC Breda and FC Utrecht. Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder's third fight has been targeted for December the 19th by the camps of both boxers. According to top-ranked Chief Executive Brad Jacobs, it is hoped that things will have returned to normal by then for the bout to be staged. Jacobs also adds that they are looking at locations all over the world for the trilogy bout, although top-ranked CEO Bob Arum says they have reserved the new Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas as a potential site. And that's sports news.
And the main news again. The Federal Executive Council considered a new developmental project review scorecard of previous year. Also today, the federal government announced the resumption of domestic flights in Lagos and Abuja from Wednesday next week. And China tested its new security law by arresting 300 people in Hong Kong, including a man with a pro-independence flag. That's it on the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Do stay safe and have a good night.